Welcome, everyone. We'll get started in one-ish minute, 2 minutes. It looks like LinkedIn's up and running, and well, I think we can get started. You guys good with that?
Let's dive in. Let's go.
Amazing.
Unleash.
Welcome, everyone. Thanks for joining us. We have a super awesome topic, super awesome people joining. It's an important topic, and we'll kind of get into some of that. But first, just in case no one knows about Milwaukee DMC, just want to explain who we are. We're a nonprofit organization in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. We facilitate the growth, the learning, and connection between digital marketers in our community locally through normally in real life meetups. So this is a digital event because it's about a topic that is growing at a rapid pace, and then also had the opportunity to connect with some awesome people you might know and recognize Jordan from previous meetups. Also Garrett, Sussman, you might have seen him online too, and we'll get into that. Hey everyone. All right. Go
MKE DMC, by the way, Tyler. So, if you're within that 100-mile radius, go to the event. All right. So
thanks, Jordan. Okay. So I do have to mention our sponsors because we are a nonprofit organization. Granular is a Milwaukee-based paid media agency and a 10-time Google Ads Premier partner that specializes in PPC, shopping, paid social, and programmatic advertising. Founded in 2014, their team is built entirely of senior-level specialists who have collectively managed over $300 million in digital ad spend. Granular is awesome. All of our founding sponsors are awesome. Momentic is a Milwaukee-based growth marketing agency that specializes in technical SEO, digital and content strategy, and AI search. Founded in 2018, their team is built entirely of senior-level strategists from large, fully integrated agencies with a combined 40 years of experience developing hundreds of SEO and content strategies for brands of all sizes. And finally, to complete the picture, we have McDill, a Milwaukee-based strategic branding, digital, and design agency that specializes in brand development, digital marketing, and corporate communications. They've been around since 1979, and their small but mighty team of 23 brings 45 plus years of experience partnering with clients ranging from startups to global enterprises. Thanks, sponsors. Okay, today's plan, thank you for joining. We are going to talk about personalization and AI search. It's something that a lot of people are talking about. It's a thing that I see in my feeds on social. I see it in my email. I see products being released. So today we want to talk about the playing field. We want to talk about the companies behind it, who's ahead, who's behind, what's going to maybe happen with that. We want to talk about and discuss, do LLMs redefine personalization? Because it's not a new thing in marketing. We want to talk about the implications of personalization within AI search. And then we want to discuss some specific things that SEOs and marketers can do and can control and influence within these systems. So let's introduce our guests. Garrett, Sussman. So I wanted to do it.
Yeah, I wanted to do. Tyler?
I know, right? It just went in
intro
there.
music.
Yeah.
There it is. We're gonna go a cappella on this.
I love it. Met Garrett. Garrett, we met last year in New York City at SEO Week. I saw you as the host of each day, right? And we would chat in between sessions. We hung out afterwards, and it was such a great time hanging out with you. And it's always nice connecting with someone who's also a community-driven person, who's in digital marketing. You've been in the space for a while, but I do want to say if anyone here is thinking about conferences this year, absolutely think about going to SEO Week. It has my personal endorsement as a person who's been in SEO for a long time. So fantastic event. Can't say enough about it. It's the best SEO conference from my perspective that's going on. Welcome, Garrett.
Thanks, Tyler. No, thanks for having me, man. And yeah, I felt like the connection with you instantly. Like you have such good energy, man. Like anyone you come into contact with, it's just you're the type of person who energizes other people. You know how there's some folks where it's like you talk to them, probably I'm one of those, but it's like it sucks the energy because it's just like
For sure.
Not
you,
Tyler
Garrett,
at
not
all.
you.
No, but it was really great to talk to you. I mean, I feel SEO Week was so much fun last year. We're doing it again in New York, April 27th to the 30th. But what we're talking about today, this is my wheelhouse. This is the psychology of all of this is fascinating to me. So I'm really excited to talk with you both. Rep and I, Pull Rank, Director of Digital Marketing, and yeah, let's do this.
Awesome. Welcome. Happy to have you here. Yeah, we got a really good group of people to talk about this topic, including Jordan Koene. It's your birthday. Well, happy birthday, Jordan.
Thank you. Thank you, guys.
Birthday.
Appreciate it. That would have been my intro song, right?
Happy birthday.
Yes, Jordan,
So-
it's your birthday.
Yes, it is. It is my birthday. My children reminded me first thing this morning. Not sure if that was a good or bad thing, but I did appreciate the big hugs this morning. So yeah,
That's amazing. That's amazing. You should feel special on your birthday. If only one day. I hope it's every day, but especially on your birthday.
Yes.
We're lucky to have you here. Lucky to have you both here. Jordan, you and I met, I think, at a different SEO conference. But then we both realized we were from the same home state, Wisconsin. Grew up there,
Yep.
and then we reconnected after your company Previsible sponsored a DMC event back in the summer where you came and talked about content and brand, like, and being authentic, which was such a good event. And you did that with local Packers podcaster Andy Herman.
That's right. That's right. I mean, the community is strong, right? I mean, whether it's the evolving SEO to GEO to whatever you want to call it community, or the infinite Packer fandom, go Pack Go community. They're all mighty, but we all need them. And maybe in this conversation about personalization, we might unlock some of the truths of what that really means.
Absolutely, yeah. So I hope so. Okay, let's go. Let's get into it.
Do it.
But let's
Do it.
start easy before we get into like the specifics, the details, like the stuff that maybe this is probably could be contested too. All right. So in your own words, and let's start with you, Jordan. What does personalization AI search mean to you? And then like, how would you explain it to a client or maybe a colleague who's just getting caught up in like the wildness?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things about personalization, and all of us have experienced this, right? Like if you go back just 5 to 10 years ago, you're sitting in your living room and you're talking about laundry detergent, right? And all of a sudden you open up Facebook and holy cow, Tide just happens to be advertising on Facebook. How is this happening, right? Like how did this conversation that seemingly was innocent and nobody was listening in turned into this moment of advertising? Well, we've all experienced that. That is definitely a form that's creepy, but it is a form of personalization where brands are taking all the context that they can absorb in to target you with relevant content. And ads is a form of content. As much as we may want to disagree with that, it is a form of content. And the reality is that when I think about personalization, I think about hyper contextual capabilities. I think of a world where we go well beyond the listening into what's happening at the dinner table to this moment of real clarity where LLMs can understand that my initial prompt was about myself buying running shoes, and then my next 2 or 3 prompts are about me buying running shoes for my wife. So I'm now not retargeted with the same shoes I looked at for myself, but now I'm targeted next time with something that is really relevant for my wife. And that's hyper contextual, right? That is something that we're not there yet today, in my opinion. Obviously, we'll probably talk about this a lot today, but with ChatGPT ads, it's going to be very interesting how that unfolds, especially by kind of, in my opinion, tying their hands to only free ChatGPT users. That will become really hard to become hyper contextual if you're limited to very specific a user type within your ecosystem. But when it comes down to it, like brass tacks, I fundamentally believe that personalization is all about hyper-contextualization and how these systems and engines and then advertisers behind that are capable at doing that.
Yeah, that's a super interesting take. Garrett, let's swing it over to you. You can
Yeah, I mean,
address that or like have your own take.
No. I mean, I'm with Jordan 100%. I think the key word is context. You know, we were talking a little before this, but this is the idea of like personalization is not new, but to kind of think about it, if I'm looking for a grocery store and I'm in Virginia and you're looking for a grocery store and you're in Australia, you don't expect the same results. That's not a good experience because your grocery store in Australia probably doesn't even exist here in the US. What personalization does, and we're used to it on the local level, is we're going to get search results that speak to the context where we are, for instance, what device we're on, and it's going to be a better search experience. The reason we're talking about it now is because all of a sudden, all of these different, you know, whether it's a large language model or just search engines, are adding in new data points that can make the search results a better experience for the individual. And there are a lot of opportunities for that. It can make search a really great utility that it couldn't do before because of limitations to the technology and limitations to data. It can also be problematic, you know, in terms of, do we want something that is so specific towards us that it limits what we're exposed to? And I know we're going to dive into all this, but ultimately personalization, and to Jordan called out as like this idea of hyper personalization, is this next level of search that's impacting consumers, it's impacting marketers, and it's ultimately impacting the tech that's building it, and fundamentally changes the way we as marketers and SEOs change our jobs.
Yeah. I think all the data points to that from my perspective. So let's look at the playing field. You know, Google has Gemini, which recently announced personal intelligence, and a deal with Apple to be the thing that powers Siri by default. ChatGPT has conversations and memory. Perplexity is building user profiles. Copilot, you know, is in your Microsoft ecosystem. So that it seems like all of these companies are converging on personalization at the same time. So like, what do you think changed?
Well, I think they are. There's a lot potentially. Whether we get into like macroeconomics and politics, the advancement of the LLMs, to take a step back, you know, we have to understand that like machine learning has been around for decades and decades and decades. I would say, you know, 10 years ago when Bert and Mum are coming out, we're seeing advancements in terms of natural language and being able to understand the context. And then most recently, like Apple tried to do this a couple years ago with Apple Intelligence, and they fumbled the bag. Like, I was so excited. I was bullish on Apple. I was like, okay, they get it. They're connecting my data. And then you just got this like really not as good version of Siri. But, you know, last, 4 years since ChatGPT, 3 years came out, and we know the capabilities of LLMs. Now, all of a sudden, we're seeing the capabilities. They're getting past some of the hallucination issues where it's becoming more reliable. And I think there's a trust where we are now more comfortable connecting our personal data to get those better results. And so I think you're right. There is a crescendo here where we're still at the nascent early phases, and it is still going to suck in a lot of ways, which we'll talk about too. But it's worth it to enter the consumer field because there's enough competitors that's pushing everybody else forward.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. So do you think, and then Jordan, this will be for you, Jordan, I'm curious about your perspective. Do you think that like the future of like dominance or whoever's the leader is going to be like, are we going to be seeing these platforms like fighting for different slices of our life? Like, is that kind of what I'm hearing?
I mean, there's a strong possibility that becomes the case. I think, you know, we've already seen that these LLM models are verticalizing themselves, right? And I think you're going to see a real strong stance. I mean, we're doing this webinar here just days before the Super Bowl, and I think you're going to see a really strong stance from a lot of these AI companies in terms of who they're trying to position to, right? What kind of user they want to go after, right? And the Googles of the world, the Apples of the world, the Metas of the world want to get into some massive consumer base, right? their entire business depends on that, right? Like if Google is not able to reach billions and billions and billions of people, they'll never hit their targets. They'll never hit their growth targets and their revenue targets. And that's a simple fact of how they're structured as a company. But then you look at someone like Anthropic and what they're trying to do with Claude, and that's a totally different game, right?
Great ads, by the way.
Great ads, yes. The trailers are very good. Yes, and I think this is super important because to your question, like there's this verticalization component to it, and that may very well be where this unfolds. I don't know. I think the cost of doing this is very high. The cost of maintaining and managing and scaling these models is very high. So to like, what extent can you be serving only one demographic or one user type? That's hard for me to predict or see, but it is fundamentally where things are shifting in some instances here. On the flip side, though, on the personalization aspect, and I know you might get tired of me talking about ads, and I'm an SEO guy, and I don't know shit about ads, to be super transparent. But it is super important, and the reason it's important is because personalization and why all these companies are converging on this at this particular moment is because they're trying to understand monetization. And you can't understand monetization unless you understand who the user is. And personalization is at its core about who's behind the screen and what they want. And so that I think is fundamentally the most critical aspect that these models are all trying to understand is who's behind that screen at that particular moment in time, and why is that individual doing this prompt so that I can serve them something that makes me money.
And to speak to that too, I feel like, the market we have to remember that in the context of search, Google owns 90% of the market. And that really hasn't changed fundamentally. And the way that we interact with search, we're so used to it. There are different behaviors when it comes with interacting and using an LLM for search. And one of the big things with Google, which was huge from the DOJ antitrust trial in 2020, was Google being the default version of search on phones, on browsers. And they had that exposure, and there's that moat. And so until that's broken down, until there's a value add we truly see from Anthropic and OpenAI that Google isn't capable of, it's going to be really hard to challenge that moat. And now we're also seeing this memory moat, this personalization moat, this access to data, which if you've ever read Enshittification by Cory Doctorow, he talks about the importance of this idea of interoperability, which is this tech's ability to exchange data back and forth. And to what Jordan was saying, it's like you have Apple that tries to create this walled garden to keep you locked in, and you like their products are so sticky and you can't use it elsewhere. And as a result, you think about the old, speaking of ads, the old Apple PC ads, which funny enough, who was it? I think it was Anthropic. Somebody brought it back recently, which I thought was brilliant. You'll see in the Super Bowl ads where they brought the guys who did the Apple and PC ads. But we are going to find people choosing a lane, and it's going to be really hard to unlock yourself from a psychological standpoint from whatever ecosystem you choose. And so that I think that has implications to way this all plays out with the market dynamics.
Interesting.
I'm so happy on Middle Earth. I have to stay in my Apple ecosystem.
It has a lot of benefits. I mean, there's a lot of psychological, the network effect, the quality, like the Apple's so good at brand and identity and who you are participating in. Yeah. There's a cult of Apple. That's a thing. But it does speak to, we are at this phase where you have to choose. It feels like you have to choose, and people are going to be choosing as they become used to and exposed to LLMs.
Fair. So are you also saying that the Gemini deal with Siri is not as big of a deal as Google being the default search engine, or are you saying
bigger?
Okay, that's what. That's kind of
because Google's in
what
their,
it seems
in their
like.
ecosystem. Yeah, it's. I mean, it's like the fact that whether Safari or Chrome is your default browser on Apple, and even using Safari, that Google is the default search engine. It is a parasitic relationship in the sense of for the longest time, Apple didn't build a search engine because Google was paying them $30 billion a year to not do that. So there's a risk there for both companies, more so for Apple. But yeah, that is a deal with two devils making deals with each other.
Correct. I mean, if you are in the Western world and you have an Apple device and use it as your primary device of any form, work form, personal form, whatever, doesn't matter. And obviously 90-something 8% of the world uses Google. There's that 2% that use Brave. They're brave people. And
They exist.
the reality is, like, you will get personalized in some of the most extreme and like just contextual ways in the world. Like, I don't think anywhere else on the planet will have that kind of capability and data set on human behavior, consumption, and everything, right? Because those two, like you said, Garrett, they're parasitic. They're going to feed data to one another about how users are behaving and doing things in a way that we've never seen before. Now, this could be good, to be candid with you. It's not like it's all bad. It also could be very, very creepy. I think everybody on the planet that has had Facebook for any period of time knows what creepy feels like. You felt creepy on the internet. And I'm not talking from humans. I'm talking from like companies. And so
Right.
like that's an important factor for all of us to kind of take note of, because the reality is changing that's going to be complicated. How you change that and unpack that goes back to DOJ antitrust type cases, because the functional way that we change this as a society isn't going to be by us, unplugging ourselves, setting up various VPNs in our house networks, and decoupling ourselves from like every single, branded thing, and, trying to buy products from every single part of the world and then stitching them together into our home network. That's impossible. That's never going to work. We're going to need a more scalable solution that helps society at large.
Yeah. I mean, that's like a perfect transition to the next section that we wanted to cover, I think, which is how do LLMs redefine personalization? So, I mean, just from like a high level, I think is a good place to start, and then we can like sort of drill in here. So, I mean, obviously, personalization isn't new, and then even like Google search has been personalizing search for years. There's many patents about this. There's many use cases where you can just see personalization based on location, whatever, within your search results. So what's new about LLMs personalizing? Like, what's the scale we're looking at? What's the speed or delivery to the user? Or like, what's the like actual, like, is the personalization that we're seeing more personalized to each and every user? Let's start with you, Garrett.
Okay, I think that the thing with personalization is it can get really complex really quickly. We are giving access, as I mentioned, to more data points. Whether it's your email, your photos, already has your search history, already has your location. So, Sundar Pichai talks about this. I know, he is a PR communications guy for Google, despite being the CEO. It is additive. Add that to the natural language capabilities of search, is we can ask so much more of our search engines. And I personally believe, and this is one of my general predictions, is that search is more of a secondary function to an AI assistant, or will be in the future. Like, we all think of AI as search, as Google, as its own thing. You go to Google for search. But there's going to be more and more blending of that, and the personalization, understanding and being able to predict your needs, predict your context, and provide that more personalized answer is the next step. Now, it's going to be interesting to see our expectations versus reality. We already see this with LLMs, where we expect an LLM, a robot, a machine, to give us the right answer every single time, and that is not the case. We are going to expect these machines to be able to read our minds. People can't read our minds. Machines can't read our minds. No matter how much context and pattern recognition they have, at least at this point in time, it is not going to be a flawless experience. And so there's going to be a lot of growing pains with personalization going forward, but it is fundamentally different because of the capabilities. Jordan?
I mean, one of the things that all of us are familiar with, because we're all SEOs, and probably a lot of our listeners are in the SEO space or content marketing to some extent, have some exposure to SEO. So the reality is we're all familiar with algorithms, right? Like, we all talk about algorithms. We've talked about algorithms for decades. Google's talked about algorithms. We've talked about algorithms. We've given algorithms random, funny animal names. Like, we've done all kinds of things with algorithms, right? But LLMs are a very different type of algorithm. They are what is called, and the founder Danielle from Anthropic talks about this a lot. They are stateless algorithms. So they're not necessarily pegged to the memory or the data or the API or the inputs that they're given. They're there to predict the next element. They're there to predict the next best thing. Now, the problem with a stateless algorithm is that if it is perpetually predicting things and that prediction is manipulated, right? If a government leader tells all of the constituents of their country that you will be killed if you do not vote for them, that is a clear prediction of what the future will be. So this is a stateless algorithm. And in a stateless algorithm, that prediction of the future can be manipulated or influenced in ways that all the algorithms that we're used to as SEOs cannot. And I think that that's a really important factor when we think about personalization. We think about the content that we're producing. We think about even the gains that we can manufacture from the content that we produce, right? Lot of hype last year about Reddit. A lot of hype in the beginning of this year about listicles, right? But those gains are largely predicated on the fact that these models were predicting this to be a useful thing for users until they're not. And then what happened? And so I think that there's a changing of the guard in terms of the rules of how we control or influence these algorithms. And I think it's still very unknown because we haven't been given any guidelines. We haven't been given any guardrails, even from Google. Google hasn't come out and said, hey, when you're working with Gemini, you must do this, this, this. In fact, everything that we see from any of these LLM models when it comes to working with them or engaging with them is pure PR stunts, right?
Yep.
Let's take, how many companies have been on agentic commerce protocol? I don't know, maybe 7? Great. You know how many companies exist in the world that sell stuff on the internet? Hundreds of millions. Like, just ask Shopify. This is like kind of crazy where we're at in terms of the guidelines. And so whenever one of these companies like pipes up about how to engage with their model and this stateless algorithm, we kind of find this vacuum. And until we get real clarity in that, until we define it either for them, which has happened for Google, we as an industry, this industry has defined things that then Google will abide by. That has happened. Or they come and define it for us to play within, the sandbox per se. We're not going to really understand how to get to good personalization from an organic standpoint. I'm sure this is going to come real fast on the ad side, simply because they're going to have to, because that's how you make money. People want revenue if they're going to advertise. And the reality is they're going to have to find a way to do that through personalization and give context to the advertiser based on who the user and the end state is of an event. Because
currently they're not, like, the data's pretty not like empty and sparse, no data, right? That's what I've seen. I'm not an ads expert.
Regardless, it's a paradigm shift anyway. I mean, kind of what Jordan's speaking to is like the probabilistic nature of the outputs and the way that user behavior will change, where everything's granular. Like, we're topic based. We're not, keyword based anymore. You're going to get to a point where every single search is a unique snowflake. Because both in terms of the length and the way that we phrase it, and then the personal data, and the fact that when I do it now versus when I do it tomorrow is going to be different, it completely shifts the way we need to think about what is valuable to us. And to Jordan's point as well, when we're looking at how a behemoth like Google moves, we really need to think about it in two contexts. Speaking of context, is revenue and user satisfaction. That's all they really, truly deep down care about, because user satisfaction informs whether or not people stay on the site to generate more revenue. And so it's hard to believe that they're always going to do what's in the best interests of someone who's searching or using their content without regulation. That's a whole other can of worms that we start to kind of touch on, which is, is there... right now there's no consequences to the DOJ antitrust trial. And I know. It's hard to argue. I mean, Google's a monopoly. I don't think anyone would deny that. Yep. But a fine is not going to fix them. And so there's really, I think, and right now, not to get too political, but I think for the next 3 years, we're not going to see any consequences. So what's going to happen in the next 3 years with this technology that will ultimately continue to go down that direction where we're all just like glued to it and can't avoid it.
Right. I mean, I see it popping up in places I would least expect people to be glued to it.
On the data piece, I want to give Garrett and just the iPull rank team some credit here, because I think the fan out query piece And what you guys have been publishing around that is one of the areas where we do have some, let's just say, a crack of light in terms of what's happening. And I think that that's an important one, because what I find really interesting is a lot of people focus or emphasize on the fan out queries themselves and trying to collect or capture them. But really what I think is more interesting is what the relationship between those are, and where that can be more valuable in terms of your content strategy, your user experience. Again, going back to what you do as an SEO, it creates a personalization approach to how you produce an asset or an experience for a user. That, I think, has a lot behind it. I mean, there aren't really great tools to do this at mass scale, but there are some ways to kind of get to this, and people are building great things around this. I see a lot of innovators in our space doing things around this, and I think it is our first kind of little light of data, let's just say.
But to that point, it's going to get more complicated too, right? Because like we don't know the extent to which query fan out is personalized. Right now, there's this kind of thought of like, okay, if I search for what are the best sneakers, we're going to see, 20 to 30, at least on Google, maybe it's only 5 on ChatGPT, 20 to 30 related searches that are still generalized, almost people also ask type of searches. Whereas how soon before we see what are the 20, 30 sneaker fan outs that are related to Garrett being a 40-something-year-old dude in the East Coast who doesn't run but he should run because of my past search history, and then go through that query fan out. Like, it's going to get more complicated before it gets easier. And so I think as marketers and SEOs, we're going to have to walk this fine line between being so used to performance marketing and kind of, Jordan, kind of what you're going back to speaking to ads is like, we don't know how that's going to play out. But in theory, you can't mess around with the ad data because you have to show what you're getting for your money. In theory, I mean, who knows? There's ad fraud too, so that's a whole
eventually. It's a very elite group today, advertising in this. So. Very elite.
So yeah, I feel like we need to make. Well, I feel like we've introduced like, hey, here's the landscape. Here's how it's nothing like what you're used to, and then people's heads are probably spinning and like wondering like this is a lot of problem to deal with. This stresses me out. Let's stress people out just a little bit more, and then we'll get into like what we can control and do.
We haven't done enough, Tyler. We went through like creepy Facebook era, all the way into like more creepy. Now we're like, where can we go next?
I mean, we're going for like the ultimate experience here. Like, let's bring them down like as low as we can go. Because like it's important if you are a person who's just getting caught up to like understand like what people have been thinking about and innovating around, as we're talking about for the past, 5 years, like probably longer than that. So like the things that people have been thinking and planning for, and like that there's still, where a lot of people are wondering what to do, even if they've been thinking about this for a long time. And I think it's taken a toll on people in addition to other things that are happening in their lives and in the world. So I want to talk about measurement like a little bit more. Like Garrett, you said, we have to get away from this idea of measuring performance marketing. And I can't give any insight or like perspective from like a paid media side performance marketing, but like SEO is a performance channel. We were used to traffic. You can read, you can scroll through anyone's LinkedIn feed and see like how traffic is not a metric that indicates revenue. We used to tie it to revenue. So like, what are we looking at?
So I think you need to it's not that you're not looking at traffic or revenue, because those are still really important. I think we just need to look through it all through a different lens. The way we talk about it at iPull Rank, and Mike King's talked about a lot, is the idea of looking at it through 3 tiers. In the sense of your input metrics, in terms of what are you doing, how, mathematically related is the content to the topics that you're trying to show up for. Still, looking at your links from an authoritative standpoint, you still want to be connected to as real world branding as you can. Then we're looking at the second tier, which is the channel metrics. So looking at both the recommendations and the citations. I know there's a lot of criticism in terms lately about, because of the probabilistic nature of AI search, that reporting on these doesn't matter because it's so messy that looking at how many times your brand is mentioned or where it's ranking doesn't matter anymore. And I would say, no, you don't want to completely throw out all your data. You just need to look at it directionally in terms of your share of voice at scale. You know, if you have the resources, you need to look as much scale as possible across the entire topic. You still want to do citations depending on what your business case is. I mean, we're going to have a different conversation for a media publisher, which is, I don't envy media publishers in 2026 versus e-com, which in some ways it's easier because they have a more direct access, even to Jordan's point, even though there's only like 7 brands that, you know, can get the UCP or getting directly into OpenAI's through their merchant vendor program. It will get there eventually. And then like that third tier is the performance metrics, is traffic, is conversions, is revenue. Local is a whole different conversation. I think what's really hard for people to understand and what makes it so much more complex is 2 factors. One, you have to look at your marketing holistically. You really can't look at organic search in a silo anymore because everything influences it. And then 2, you can't look at general best practices across an entire industry anymore. What works for one business in one industry for one section of topics for one segment is going to be different. So it's a lot more work because you need to get niche specific. I think there's almost an opportunity if you have your messaging and your positioning and your audience locked in and you know them, you can thrive in this new environment. I think if you're trying to be everything to everyone across every different layer, that's where things can be really tough unless you have the resources to establish yourself as a top 5 market leader for a competitive market. It's just a completely, going back to the second question, it's a completely different kind of strategy and mindset.
Yeah, Jordan, thoughts?
I think Garrett, you summed that up like super well.
Yeah.
The only thing I can like add to like this measurement, you know, paradigm or crisis, depending on who you talk to, we're in right now, is that fundamentally as organic marketers, whether you're on the content side, the technical side, I don't care what role you have, if you're the CMO on this podcast or on this webinar, or you are the, you know, new intern who's working on organic, I don't care. Go land grab. Take every single source of traffic you can take credit for and take it. Just take it. If the company will give you the homepage credit, take the homepage. If the company will give you the About Us page credit, take the credit. It doesn't matter if it's direct traffic, if it comes from some random outer space signal, I don't care. Take credit. Because right now, where we're at when it comes to organic marketing, we are in a kind of a crisis of attribution that you simply cannot like single out what the problem, why this is happening. But if you're going to get credit for it, take it. Just take it. Do not walk your way out of taking credit of any form of attribution, because it's probably having some contribution to your organic footprint. I mean, one of the great exercises we're doing is looking at a anomaly. We do this anomaly analyzer where we look at direct traffic versus organic traffic. And we look at where are there anomalies within page types or specific pages that look very different from the average. And it's super important because it gives you really clear credence to justify things that you talk to leaders about. For example, here's a page about our offerings in Europe. It has a very distorted amount of direct traffic compared to the exact same product in the US. I wonder why. That GDPR conversation no longer becomes mystical, it becomes factual, right? You can see it in the data. Now again, if the company will give you credit for that direct traffic, take it. But like, I think that's the piece that most of us are very reluctant to do. We're very reluctant to say, hey, we're willing to explore and contribute from all these other aspects of marketing or branding or, you know, reputation management for small or local businesses. Take all the credit. Take all you can.
To that point, I will give you a real-time experiment for you to pay attention to this weekend. The Super Bowl.
Yes.
The Super Bowl is going to be so freaking fascinating for AI search right now. Because, and this is where everyone, to your point, taking credit, there's going to be so much media generated around every single commercial. There already is, because now it's like Black Friday where people like announce their Super Bowl ads weeks before.
Yeah.
But all of this influences your brand perception, which will influence the way that the various LLMs will present your brands outside of training data, because we know that training data isn't updated every day. That's like, 10, 12 months at a time, maybe. But anything that's grounded in search is I think if you looked at any of these different LLM monitoring tools, you are going to see wicked volatile fluctuations of brand visibility for anyone who is in an industry that is touched by the Super Bowl this weekend.
100%.
Are you guys looking for any of that? What are you guys looking for?
I just did a post today, not to promote my stuff, but I just did a post this morning on all the Super Bowl ads that are related to AI. I call out 2 ads in there that are not AI companies, not Anthropic, not Gemini, not Meta, there are 2 other companies who are playing on the AI spin, and it's going to be very interesting to see how their branding unfolds on that. Although, I mean, spoiler alert, if you read the article, it's a very short article, but it has all the trailer videos for every one of the AI-related Super Bowl ads, so go check it out. It's on our
They're so
website.
good. Yeah, I love them.
But the last video I think is the most important one, because I'm watching the Super Bowl for one purpose only. It's a cultural purpose, and it's Bad Bunny. So that's why I'm going to be there. So I don't know about you guys, but that's where my motive is.
Oh my God! I mean, social. I mean, it's so, and I'm with you on that too. I think social, it's so easy to underestimate, because historically in search, Facebook was still kind of a walled garden. Twitter, I'm not calling it the other thing, Twitter is very much embedded in Google search. Reddit, obviously, as you mentioned, has become a big part of search over the last couple of years. And whether there was some conspiracy theory, another parasitic relationship between Google and Reddit, it's hard not to go down that route. LinkedIn is the current one. But it's a very interesting personalization component of what's happening in real time, and how does that impact the type of results that we see tied to these very social channels. So I think that's another thing that I'm paying attention to more and more, to see the extent to which social influences the outputs and what you get.
For sure. And to take that a step further to predictions, and then let's get into, we have 12 minutes left. There's a few things to kind of tie things together, more about here's things we can do. But to take that one step further, just thinking about personal context, let's think about it in the sense of Gemini and users opting into personal intelligence. So email being a part of that. Is email a part of search then? If
Yes.
Social can influence search from that perspective. Yeah. Now we're thinking about email too in the future.
Tyler, my refrigerator is going to be part of search.
Okay, so I did an experiment the other day where I connected mine, because I think most people, as much as you're going to have 2 contingents, you have people who are really into data privacy, who want to avoid. You can't live off the grid and live on the grid and not be a part of all this. I'm sorry. Your data is not private. Just accept it if you want to participate in digital society in any capacity. Yeah. That said, I am much more comfortable working with an evil empire like Google than I am with a open source, community like Moltbook and Claudebot that we've been seeing recently, where you've already seen 1.5 million API keys being exposed. What I will say with the experiment I did when I connected my Google account to personal intelligence is just to see. I tried out what are the best socks on AI. I just want to see. And you see the little visuals that it's checking your Gmail, it's checking your photos, it's checking all that. And right out of the gate, I got 2 sock brand recommendations based on receipts of what I purchased in my email. Now, previously, I'd seen different recommendations, a bigger variety, but I saw those recommendations and it highlights some of the issues with personalization, because in that moment, when I have a general query like what are the best socks, I don't want AI mode to tell me what I've already purchased. I did the same with hoodies. I got the same experience. Got the same output where it recommended, because I'm a hoodie guy. It's got my 3 brands of hoodies. And so I'm going to be very interested to see how they adjust the knobs, the weights, if you will, of search. Because going back to what I was saying about being a mind reader, if I'm giving a generalized query, and I think most people are going to play with this and either get really excited about the results or really frustrated, how is it going to predict for a generalized query what is the context of what I'm actually asking for in that moment, and do I want it to tell me and confirm my bias of what I already know? So it very much uses email. I'm personally doing more experiments right now to see what other how invasive the results are and how much they change based on that. But I think early on we're going to see significant impacts for people who do connect these accounts.
Okay. So
By the way, Garrett, just so you know, stance, those are the best socks. You just there's no way around this. Like, you just go stance. I'll send you my affiliate link here right after this. But, I'm just kidding.
I was going to say, really cool guy, Jordan, but we can't be friends. Darn tough all the way, forever and always.
All right,
darn tough. If you want to work with iPull
here. But on that note, I think one of the interesting things about this concept that we were talking about earlier about a stateless algorithm, right? It'll be really interesting as Google connects all of these components, brands that have been very, very attuned to multi-channel marketing and integrated marketing campaigns, how they win or lose in this race, because that's going to become super critical, right? And just look at our own businesses or our own, the three of us, we work at agencies, consultancies, and are we emailing and talking to our customers? Are we publishing useful and valuable content? Are we showing up at industry events and having real life experiences and taking photos with people? Those things are going to matter in a world where all of that is going to start to come together, right? It's all going to get connected into one pot of data. Now, the personalization layer that gets put on top of that, that'll be interesting, right? To your point, Garrett, is it giving me recommendations because I've already purchased this, or is it genuinely understanding my prompt and my desire to try something new, like stance socks, stance. Maybe I can keyword stuff this a few more times for you, Garrett.
Video. When transcripts matter as well. We haven't even talked about YouTube. It's you just saying that 3 times is going to influence the LLM for anyone who watches this video.
Exactly. Sorry.
That's amazing. Okay, a few minutes left here. So I have a round called hot potato. I don't even know if that's a term, but it seems like it makes sense. And it's the first part is agree or disagree. So Jordan, you go first, and it's just true, false. If you need 3 words to say after, that's cool.
I'll keep it short.
All right. So brands with existing customer relationships will always be challengers in a personalized search world.
False.
Okay. Garrett, the next one's for you. You can also do on the same one.
I don't want to. I don't even want to. Give me the next one.
Fine. Brands winning in 5 years won't have the best content. They will have the most touch points in a user's daily life. Okay. Love it.
That's good.
Oh, you want more?
Yeah. True,
No,
but you had one more word.
Real world brands win. It's not fair.
Yeah.
Here's what I'll say: is search is not fair. It's editorial, and just because even if you're the best product.
Interesting. That's good. Jordan, your perspective.
I mean, I definitely think that any brand that can get those touch points has this huge advantage. I think there are going to be a lot of incumbent players that don't know how to use that, though, and so it'll create gaps for new players to get in. But where in that digital touch point you can get in, that's the great marketing work ahead for all of us.
Yeah.
I got one more word to throw out there: subversion. If you're not a big brand, if you can find ways to subvert these systems, you can win.
Awesome. Okay. And then 3, we're going to do 3, finish the sentence. Sort of easy. Prompt tracking is relevant. Jordan.
Prompt tracking is mystery meat.
Okay. Good.
Hey, but some people like spam.
Garrett,
Valuable
did you say
in
pass?
context.
Valuable in context.
Originally, I said relevant because whatever you feel, it's relevant right now. But I will say valuable in context.
Okay.
Yes.
Biggest threat to your brand is, I think I know where this is going.
Sorry, you go, Jordan.
I'm sorry. Valuable for your brand?
No, biggest threat to your brand. Garrett, it doesn't have to be your brand. The audience's brand. Biggest threat to a brand is
lack of channel identity.
Okay.
I was just going to say the brand is you're your own biggest threat. I would say, I want to say your brand. The other thing I was leaning towards is just disruptions in these ecosystems.
Yeah.
But I don't know what that actually necessarily means. So it's you just can't future-proof right now in a lot of ways.
Yeah, that's an important piece of context. And then last one, and we can wrap things up. And it was so awesome to have you both here and talking about this. That's such a valuable conversation for a lot of us. Brands winning in 5 years will be the ones that...
I'll take this one. That understand their audience and their customers the best.
Okay.
And care about them in the places that they're at.
I don't know. You got some sadists out there.
Deep.
I agree. No, I do agree.
I love it.
Amazing. We're just about at time. Yeah, I just want to thank everyone for joining with us. Thank you, Garrett. Thank you, Jordan. Happy birthday, Jordan.
Absolutely. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
Again, like if you're looking for a conference to go to see more conversations like this and like have community and like have a way to learn and meet people, SEO Week, talk to Garrett, reach out to Garrett about that, or go to the website. I don't know what the website is, but I've been there. Yeah, thanks everyone. And then if you're in the Milwaukee area, we have our next event in 2 weeks on Wednesday. It's about brand. And it's actually non-marketers joining us to tell us what us marketers don't get about brand. So it's going to be a fun panel where we get to learn and kind of self-reflect on what creatives think about us. So yeah, thanks again. Have a great weekend, everyone. Go Super Bowl and like... I don't even know, like, I can't even like say like I'm rooting for a team. Yeah, thanks everyone. See you later.